I watch him from across the boardroom, my fingers resting lightly against the polished oak table, my face a mask of polite interest. Daniel doesn't notice me. Not yet. He's too busy talking, too absorbed in his own world, smiling, confident, in control. The golden boy of the financial world, still arrogant, still charming, still completely unaware that his past has come back to haunt him. The past that he thought was buried, the past that I have carried with me every single day. I tilt my head, studying him, waiting for the moment his eyes meet mine. And when they do, something flickers across his face, just for a second. Recognition? Number not yet. I smile at him, just a little, a slow, deliberate curve of my lips. Hello, Daniel. It's been a long time. He has no idea who I am. He doesn't know that once, a lifetime ago, he loved me, and that I, foolishly, hopelessly, had loved him in return. He doesn't know that I died, and he doesn't know that I came back. I used to believe in love. I used to believe in forever. Daniel made it easy. He was the kind of man who could make you forget the world was cruel. He had that effortless charm, that lazy, cocky grin that made my heart skip a beat. And when he looked at me, really looked at me, it felt like I was the only thing that mattered. I was young, naive, and so stupid. Because I believed he would stay. I believed he would hold my hand through the worst of it, that he would whisper promises and kiss my forehead and tell me that none of it mattered, that we would fight together, that we were stronger than my diagnosis, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, a slow, merciless thief that stole the air from my lungs, inch by inch, breath by breath. At first, he tried. I think he really did. He sat beside me in hospital rooms, held me when I cried, promised he wasn't going anywhere. But then it got worse. I got worse. And suddenly he started missing calls, making excuses, pulling away. I saw it in his eyes before he even said the words. Regret, fear, the realization that he wasn't strong enough to watch me die. Then one day he just stopped coming. No goodbye, no closure, nothing. I waited. God, I waited for him. I told myself he would walk through the door, that he would take my hand, press his lips to my knuckles, and tell me he was sorry, that he loved me, but he never did. And in the end, I died alone. The last thing I remember is the pain, the feeling of my lungs collapsing, the sheer terror of knowing my body was failing me, that I was slipping away and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. And then, darkness. But it wasn't the end, because then there was light, a harsh, sterile white, the beeping of machines, the weight of a body that didn't feel like my own, and the voices. She's stable. She's lucky to be alive. A near-fatal car accident, but the transplant was a success. The words blurred together, tangled in my mind. A car accident? A transplant? It took weeks for me to understand. My body was different, taller, stronger, a stranger's hands, a stranger's face staring back at me in the mirror. But my mind was still mine. The memories came back in flashes, Daniel's laughter, the touch of his hands, the cold emptiness of waiting for him to return, the agony of dying alone. I wasn't Clara anymore, but Clara still lived inside me. I spent years trying to make sense of it, trying to be Olivia. She had a life before me, a family that barely recognized the woman who woke up in her place. I learned how to be her, how to smile the way she did, how to move through a world that wasn't mine. But no matter how much I tried, Clara never left me. Her grief, her betrayal, her love. And one day I saw him, Daniel, alive, successful, untouched by the past. He moved on, he thrived, while I carried the weight of a love that had been abandoned. Something in me snapped that day, and I knew. Clara may have loved him, but Olivia would destroy him. I watch him across the boardroom. He straightens his tie, clears his throat, and shifts slightly under my gaze. It's barely noticeable, but I catch it. A hesitation, a whisper of unease. He doesn't know why, but something about me unsettles him. Good, because soon he'll remember. Soon he'll understand. I lean back in my chair, crossing one leg over the other, my lips curling into a smile as I extend a hand. Mr. Calloway, I say smoothly, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. He smiles back, oblivious. Yes, Ms. Monroe, I've been looking forward to this. I bet you have, because you think this is just another business deal, but this isn't business. This is payback. And by the time I'm done, you'll know exactly what it feels like to lose everything, just like I did. Just like you made me. Welcome to the beginning of your end, Daniel. I've spent years preparing for this moment. Every step has been deliberate, every move calculated. And now, as I walk into the high-rise office of Callaway and Associates, I know I've already won. Because Daniel Callaway has no idea that the woman about to shake his hand is the same one he once left to die. I smile, smooth and effortless, extending my hand across the table. Mr. Callaway, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Daniel rises from his chair, buttoning his expensive suit, flashing me that easy, confident smile that used to make my heart stutter. Ms. Monroe, he says, shaking my hand firmly, the pleasure is all mine. He doesn't recognize me, not even a flicker of familiarity. It's almost insulting. But that's good. That's perfect. Because the best kind of revenge is the kind they never see coming. Daniel gestures for me to sit as he does the same, loosening his tie just a little. He's curious about me. I can tell by the way his eyes linger, just a second too long, the way his brows crease in thought. I remind him of someone. He just can't figure out who. It's almost amusing watching him struggle with that nagging feeling in the back of his mind. I wonder how long it will take before he realizes the truth. Too long. Far too late. I cross my legs, leaning forward slightly, playing the role I've perfected. The confident, successful businesswoman, ambitious yet approachable, powerful but warm. I know exactly what kind of woman men like Daniel are drawn to. And I've made sure to be exactly that. So, Olivia, he says, my name rolling off his tongue like he's tasting it. I have to say, I'm impressed. Your company's rise has been nothing short of remarkable. I tilt my head, offering a small, self-assured smile. I like to think I just know how to spot opportunities. He chuckles, nodding. Smart. And this deal you're proposing? He leans back in his chair, eyes locking onto mine. It's bold. I shrug, feigning a hint of playful arrogance. Fortune favors the bold, doesn't it? He grins. Hook, line, sinker. For the next hour, I lay the groundwork. I tell him about my company, Monroe Holdings, a rising empire in the investment sector. I make sure to drop all the right numbers, the right projections. The deal I'm proposing is massive. A multi-million-dollar partnership that could launch his firm into the highest tier of the financial world. It's too good to ignore. And Daniel? He's intrigued. I can see it in his posture, the slight shift forward, the glint in his eyes. I am the perfect client. Everything he's been waiting for, and yet he still can't shake that feeling. You know, he says suddenly, tapping his fingers on the table, you remind me of someone. Here it is. I raise an eyebrow, feigning polite curiosity. Oh? He nods, studying me a little too closely. Yeah, it's weird, actually. There's just something familiar about you. For a brief, fleeting moment, I wonder if he'll say it. If he'll say her name? Clara. But he doesn't. Because he doesn't think about Clara. Not now. Not ever. The realization is a bitter knife twisting in my gut, but I don't let it show. I just laugh lightly, shaking my head. Well, I suppose I just have one of those faces. His smile is easy, relaxed. Yeah, maybe that's it. I sip my water, letting the moment pass. He doesn't know? And that makes it so much easier. By the end of our meeting, Daniel is convinced. He thinks he's on the verge of the biggest deal of his career, that Monroe Holdings will be the key to his firm's rise to power. He doesn't realize that every step he takes toward me is leading him straight into the abyss. He trusts me now. I've seen it before. The way his eyes soften slightly when he speaks to me, the way he starts lowering his guard, little by little. He doesn't just see a business opportunity, he sees a connection. He sees something more. And that's the real trick, isn't it? Because trust is a dangerous thing. Once you have it, you can do anything. Later that night, when I'm alone in my penthouse, I stare out at the city skyline, a glass of wine in my hand, my mind buzzing. I should feel triumphant. I should feel nothing but satisfaction knowing that the plan is working. But there's something else. Something I don't want to acknowledge. A ghost of a feeling. A part of me, small, fragile, traitorous, remembers what it felt like to love him, to want him, the way he used to hold me, the way he used to whisper my name like I was the only thing that mattered. I close my eyes, exhaling slowly. That was Clara. I am not Clara. Clara was weak. She was desperate for his love. She was willing to forgive him. But I'm not here for love. I'm here to ruin him. I shake the thoughts away, finishing my wine in one swallow. Tomorrow, the next phase of the plan begins. Tomorrow, I make sure Daniel Calloway starts to fall. And by the time he realizes what's happening, there won't be a damn thing he can do to stop it. Because love might have made Clara weak, but revenge? Revenge makes me unstoppable. The first time Daniel truly falters, it's just a small thing. A hesitation, a brief, almost imperceptible crease in his forehead as he studies the numbers on his screen. I watch from across his desk, sipping my coffee, my expression carefully neutral. "This doesn't make sense," he mutters, tapping his pen against the sleek glass surface. His other hand rubs at his temple, the first signs of stress beginning to show. I lean forward slightly, my voice smooth and reassuring. "It's just a fluctuation, Daniel. The market's unpredictable, nothing you can't handle." He exhales, his lips pressing together in a thin line before nodding. "Yeah, you're right. We've weathered worse." "No, you haven't. Not like this, not like what's coming." The cracks in his empire start small, barely noticeable to anyone but me. A miscalculated investment, a bad merger deal, an unexpected dip in stock prices. None of it is sudden or obvious. That would make him suspicious. That would make him fight back. No, this has to be slow. A creeping, inevitable collapse. And I know exactly how to make it happen. I plant false leads, nudge him toward disastrous partnerships, whisper just the right words at just the right moments. A suggestion here, a misdirect there, just enough to push him toward a decision, but never enough to make him doubt his own judgment. Because that's the trick, isn't it? If the failure feels like his own, he won't look for the person pulling the strings. And Daniel, always so sure of himself, doesn't see it coming. He trusts me more than ever. That's the real irony. Every time a deal backfires, every time he finds himself backed into a corner, he turns to me. Late night phone calls, hurried texts, quiet moments in his office where he just looks at me, weary and frustrated. "I don't get it," he says one night, his voice low, tired. "I've built this company from the ground up. I've never made these kinds of mistakes before." He's right. He hasn't. Until I came along. "You're being too hard on yourself," I murmur, tilting my head just slightly, giving him the look I know will soften his edges. "You're dealing with things no one could have predicted." His jaw tightens, his fingers lacing together on the desk. I should have seen it. I lean forward, resting a hand lightly on his forearm, just enough pressure to make him believe in the illusion of comfort. "You'll get through this," I say, my voice quiet, steady, and he believes me. That's the worst part, isn't it? He still believes in me, even as I tear his world apart. I should feel nothing but satisfaction. I should be reveling in the slow unraveling of the man who once abandoned me. And during the day, I do. I watch him stumble, watch his once flawless reputation start to crack under pressure, watch him struggle to hold everything together. But at night I dream, not of revenge, not of his downfall, but of Clara. I dream of the way he used to look at me, the way his arms felt around me, strong and steady, the way he whispered my name like it meant something. I dream of love. I wake up angry because love made Clara weak, and I am not Clara anymore. Daniel starts bleeding money faster than he can control. His company, once an untouchable empire, begins to fracture under the weight of bad deals and lost investments. It's everywhere now, the financial news buzzing with rumors, his name circulating in whispers of failure and collapse. His staff walks on edge, eyes darting nervously when he walks into a room, sensing the tension in the air. And Daniel? Daniel is still fighting to believe this is salvageable. He doesn't see how deep the knife is already buried. Because I haven't twisted it yet. Not yet. But soon. I sit across from him in his office, watching as he stares blankly at his laptop screen. The numbers are staring back at him, brutal and merciless. He can't fix this. And he knows it. Still, he lifts his head, his eyes searching mine, like he's waiting for me to give him the answer. For one brief second, I wonder, if I told him the truth, would he even believe it? Would he recognize me? Would he feel even an ounce of regret for the way he left Clara behind? Or would he just look at me with the same blank expression he wore the day he walked away? I exhale slowly, shaking the thought away. Because none of that matters. This is the moment I've been waiting for. The moment I will pull the last thread. The moment Daniel Calloway's perfect world will finally collapse. And when it does, he will never see me coming. The walls are closing in on Daniel Calloway. I see it in his posture, the rigid set of his shoulders, the way his fingers curl into fists on the desk. His empire is in ruins. His once loyal colleagues whispering behind his back, his phone silent where it used to ring nonstop with deals, opportunities, power. Now, now he is a man on the verge of losing everything, and I am the one who put him there. The irony is almost poetic. I stand across from him in his office, the same office where he built his fortune, the same office where he's about to watch it all collapse. Sunlight filters through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, but it offers no warmth. Not today. Not for him. Daniel runs a hand through his hair, breathing heavily. This, this doesn't make any sense. His voice is raw, like he's been yelling, fighting, trying to grasp at something that keeps slipping through his fingers. None of this should have happened. I tilt my head, my arms crossed, watching as realization slowly starts to dawn on him. He isn't stupid, not completely, and somewhere, deep in that frantic, panicked mind of his, he knows that this wasn't just bad luck. It was a plan. A perfectly executed plan. My plan? Daniel's gaze lifts to mine, confusion flickering in his eyes. He shakes his head. You, he says quietly, as if he's just now really seeing me. This all started when you came into my life. I smile, a slow, deliberate thing. Finally. The silence between us stretches, thick and suffocating, until I decide to break it with the truth. You don't remember me, do you? I say softly, stepping closer. Daniel blinks, shaking his head slightly. What? His voice is hoarse. Broken. I take another step, my heels clicking against the marble floor, my eyes locked onto his. This is the moment I've waited for. Clara did, I whisper, every single day, even as she lay dying, even as she realized you were never coming back. The air is sucked out of the room. Daniel freezes, his face going pale, his lips parting like he wants to say something but can't. His fingers grip the edge of the desk so tightly his knuckles turn white. I can see it. The way his mind struggles to catch up, the way the name Clara slams into him like a wrecking ball. I let the silence stretch, let him feel it. Let him remember, because I remember. I remember lying in a hospital bed, struggling for breath, staring at the door he never walked through. I remember waiting for him. I remember dying alone, and now? Now I watch him drown in the same kind of suffocating helplessness. No, he breathes. His head shakes again, more forceful this time, like if he denies it hard enough, he can erase the past. That's number Clara's dead. I arch an eyebrow. Yes, she is. His eyes snap back to mine, something wild in them. Then what the hell are you saying? I inhale slowly, tilting my head. I didn't die that day, Daniel. I let the words settle, let them sting. I was reborn. His body locks up. Shock, horror, disbelief. Good. I lean in closer, lowering my voice just enough to let him feel the weight of every word. And I made sure you would never forget what you did to me. Daniel staggers back like I just slapped him. No, he whispers, shaking his head over and over, his breathing uneven. That's impossible. I shrug, unbothered. And yet, here we are. He runs both hands through his hair, his chest rising and falling in sharp, erratic breaths. He looks at me like I'm something unreal, something monstrous. But I'm not. I'm just the consequence of his choices. Daniel stumbles back toward his chair, collapsing into it, his head falling into his hands. I wait. I let him fall apart. I let him process what it feels like to be left gasping for air. Because that's what he did to me. He left me to rot in my own pain while he walked away without so much as a backward glance. Now he knows what that feels like. Seconds pass, minutes, then a sound I didn't expect. A choked, desperate laugh. Daniel lifts his head, his eyes shining with something dangerously close to tears. He swallows hard, gripping the arms of his chair. Jesus, he exhales, shaking his head. Clara, if you're really in there, then... He stops, his voice breaking. No. He looks at me not with anger, not with hatred, but something worse. Regret. I never stopped thinking about you, he murmurs, his voice hoarse. A lie. I laugh, bitter and sharp. Yes, you did. He flinches. Good. His hands clench into fists. You don't understand. No, Daniel. My voice is cold now, colder than it's ever been. You don't understand. I spent my last days believing you'd come back. I died with your name in my mind. His throat bobs as he swallows, his jaw tightening. I was scared. He admits, his voice barely above a whisper. I was a coward. He stops himself, his hands gripping his desk again, his entire body trembling. Then, suddenly, he's on his feet, stepping toward me. I don't move. Please, he says, his voice cracking. Let me fix this. I blink. Fix it? He nods rapidly. I don't know how, but he exhales, shaking his head. I just need another chance. I smile then. Not because I'm happy, not because I forgive him, but because the irony is so damn tragic. I begged for another chance once, I say softly, and you never gave it to me. He stills, his breath hitching. I lean in one last time, my lips just inches from his ear. Now you finally know what it feels like. Then I turn my back on him and walk away. I don't turn around. I don't give him the satisfaction of one last look, one last plea, one last chance to save himself. Because Daniel Calloway was given a choice once, and he made the wrong one. Now he gets to live with the wreckage, just like I did, and this time I'm the one who's leaving. This time, he's the one left waiting for something that will never come. Daniel Calloway is a man undone. He was once the golden boy of finance, the name whispered in elite circles, the man who could turn anything he touched into gold. Now he's nothing. His company is in ruins. His investors have abandoned him. His name, once associated with power and prestige, is now a punchline in financial news articles dissecting his downfall. And the worst part? I'm gone. Olivia Monroe, or Clara, or whoever the hell she really is, has vanished like a ghost. No calls, no messages, no way to track her down. She burned his world to the ground and then disappeared into the ashes. And Daniel? Daniel is left choking on the smoke. At first, he tries everything. He calls every contact he has, pulls every string, hires investigators, digs through every record he can find on Olivia Monroe. But it's like she was never real. Like I was nothing more than a shadow that drifted into his life, whispered destruction in his ear, and then slipped away without a trace. His contacts are useless. No sign of her. Vanished overnight. Sorry, man, she covered her tracks well. Daniel slams the phone down after the 10th failed call, his hands shaking with frustration. He can't accept this. He can't accept that she was real enough to destroy him, but not real enough to hold on to. And so he keeps looking. But the more he searches, the more he realizes the truth. I don't want to be found. And that realization hits harder than anything else, because it means this was never about him winning me back. This was about me leaving him behind, just like he once left me. At night, when the world is quiet and his thoughts are too loud, Clara finds him. Not Olivia. Clara. In his dreams, she is exactly as he left her. Frail, struggling to breathe, eyes searching for him in the hospital room, waiting, always waiting. And he sees himself too, standing in that doorway, knowing he should stay, knowing he shouldn't leave, but doing it anyway. And now, in the cruelest twist of fate, he is the one left behind. The dreams start the same way every time, Clara reaching for him, whispering his name. But then they change, because now when she lifts her head, her face isn't Clara's anymore. It's Olivia's. And my eyes aren't pleading anymore. They're cold, unforgiving. And then I turned away, every single time. I turned my back on him, just like Olivia did, just like Clara should have. Daniel wakes up each night gasping for breath, drenched in sweat, his hands shaking as he reaches for the empty space beside him. But I'm not there. I'll never be there. And now he knows how it feels. The whiskey burns as it goes down, but it's not enough to drown out the ache in his chest. Nothing is. Daniel sits in his apartment, the same penthouse that once felt like a kingdom, now nothing but a prison. The curtains are drawn. The once pristine space is cluttered with half-empty glasses, discarded papers, unopened letters. There is no one left to impress, no one left to hide from. He drinks because it's easier than thinking. Because the moment he sobers up, the regret comes crashing down like a tidal wave, swallowing him whole. How could he not have known? How could he not have recognized me? How could he have walked away from Clara, only to end up chasing her ghost for the rest of his life? Halfway across the country, in a city where no one knows my name, I sit in a quiet cafe, stirring a cup of tea I don't really want. I should feel free. I should feel victorious. And in some ways, I do. Daniel Calloway has finally felt what it's like to be left behind, to be discarded, forgotten. But even now, Clara's love lingers. Not in the way it once did, not as a desperate longing for him to return. That part of me is dead. But the memories remain. I remember the warmth of his touch, the way he used to hold me in the middle of the night, whispering sweet promises that, at the time, felt real. I remember loving him, and I wondered, was it ever real for him too? Does it even matter? I exhaled slowly, pushing the thoughts away, letting them drift like smoke in the air. This is my life now. A fresh start, a future unchained from the past. And I will not turn back. I will not make the mistake of looking over my shoulder. Daniel Calloway is a ghost now, just like Clara, and ghosts should stay buried. Daniel knows he won't find me, not in this lifetime. I vanished into the world, leaving behind nothing but the wreckage of what I destroyed, leaving behind him. And he is left with nothing but regret, a regret that will fester, a regret that will rot him from the inside out, a regret that will never leave him, because Clara once begged for his love. And now, he is the one left waiting for something that will never come. Now, he is the one who has to live with the weight of goodbye. And this time, there is no second chance. I wake up to the sound of rain against my window, soft, steady, cleansing. For the first time in years, I don't wake up with the weight of revenge pressing against my chest. No tangled dreams of Daniel. No whispers of the past haunting my sleep. Just the quiet hum of a city that doesn't know me. The sound of a world that keeps moving forward, just as I have. I stretch beneath the covers, inhaling deeply. My lungs expand with ease. It's such a simple thing, breathing, but it still feels like a miracle. Because once I died gasping for air, waiting for someone who never came. And now, I am alive. Not Clara, not a woman seeking vengeance, just Olivia. And for the first time, that is enough. The cafe I've come to love sits on the corner of a quiet street, its windows fogged from the cool morning air. It's a small place, nothing fancy, just warm wooden tables, the scent of fresh pastries, and the comforting sound of soft jazz playing from an old speaker. No one here knows me. No one looks at me and sees a woman who crawled out of her own grave to set the past on fire. I order a coffee, my usual now, black, with a hint of cinnamon. It tastes different here, better, because everything is different now. I take a seat by the window, watching people rush by with umbrellas and briefcases, laughing, talking, living. And for the first time, I feel like I belong among them. Like I am no longer just a ghost pretending to exist. Like I am real again. I don't check the news. I don't Google his name. I don't dig through articles to see just how far Daniel Calloway has fallen. Because it doesn't matter anymore. That part of my life, the pain, the heartbreak, the years of waiting and aching and drowning in my own anger, it's over. He is over. And I have no desire to go looking for the ruins I left behind. I already know what I would find. A man who once had everything. A man who never knew what it was like to be left behind, until now. The ultimate irony, Clara begged for his love once. And now, he is the one left waiting for something that will never come. I don't have to see him to know what his life looks like now. I don't have to hear his voice to know it's empty. I know Daniel. I know how he copes when the world caves in. He isolates himself, drinks too much, searches for ghosts in places where they no longer exist. Maybe he still dreams of me, of Clara, of Olivia, of the past he threw away. Maybe he still wakes up reaching for something that isn't there. Maybe he still tries to find me, but he won't, because I don't exist in his world anymore. And he is nothing more than a distant memory in mine. My days are quiet now. Simple. I take long walks through unfamiliar streets, discovering bookstores tucked away in alleyways, finding new favorite spots where no one knows my name. I start writing again. Not letters to the dead, not thoughts twisted with regret, just stories, ones with new beginnings, ones where the past doesn't define the future. And slowly, so slowly it almost feels like it's happening to someone else, I start to feel whole. Not in the way I used to be, but in a new way. in a way that belongs only to me. One evening, I find myself standing by the ocean, the wind cool against my skin, the sky a soft shade of pink and gold. The waves rush forward, then pull back, constant and endless. And I realize this is what healing feels like. It's not sudden, it's not loud, it's a slow, steady thing, a quiet acceptance, a breath that doesn't hurt anymore. I reach into my coat pocket and pull out a small slip of paper, the last remnant of Daniel, his business card, the one he gave me the day we first met as strangers. I stare at it for a moment, the name printed in bold, black ink, Daniel Calloway. Once, it was the name that shaped my world. Now, it is nothing more than a footnote in a story that no longer belongs to him. I let the wind take it. The card flutters, then disappears into the waves, swallowed by the tide. Gone. Just like him. I turn away from the ocean, walking back toward the life waiting for me. Not the past, not the pain, just the future. And for the first time in a long, long time, I am finally free. The first time I see him, I don't think much of it. It's just another evening, just another quiet cafe where I go to read and listen to the hum of a city that finally feels like home. The air smells of coffee and rain-soaked pavement, the soft murmur of conversation filling the space around me. I sit by the window, my fingers curled around a warm mug, watching the streetlights flicker against the wet pavement. And then he walks in. Not Daniel, not a ghost from my past, just a man. He shakes the rain from his jacket, running a hand through his damp hair before stepping up to the counter. He orders without hesitation, his voice smooth, familiar in a way that's comforting rather than haunting. He laughs at something the barista says, a low, easy sound that makes something deep inside me stir. I don't expect anything from him. I don't expect anything at all, and maybe that's why, when he catches me watching and offers a small, crooked smile, I actually smile back. His name is Ethan. We meet again, and then again like the universe is nudging me towards something I'm not sure I'm ready for. At first, I keep my distance, because I don't know how to be just Olivia with someone. Because for so long, I was nothing but Clara's unfinished story. But Ethan doesn't push. He doesn't pry or demand answers to questions I don't want to answer. Instead, he meets me where I am. A casual conversation here, a passing joke there. Until one evening, I find myself sitting across from him at a small restaurant, a glass of wine in front of me, and I realize I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about Daniel. I'm just here with him, and it feels light. Like maybe, for the first time in years, I can just exist. Somewhere across the city, Daniel Calloway sits alone. He doesn't go to the office anymore. There's no point. His firm, once his pride, his legacy, no longer belongs to him. He lost everything. The board turned on him, the investors vanished, and one by one, the people who once called him a leader walked away. He is a man without power, without influence, without me. And he knows now that was the real punishment. Not the financial ruin, not the headlines that ripped his reputation apart. The loss of me, not Clara. Clara loved him once. Olivia never will. And that's the part he never saw coming. He thought he could undo the past. That if he could just find the right words, the right apology, he could fix what had been broken. But some things can't be fixed. Some things are meant to be left behind. And now he is the one who has to live with the weight of that truth. Ethan and I walk along the riverfront, the city lights reflecting off the water, the air cool but comfortable. So, he says, slipping his hands into his pockets, glancing at me with something like curiosity. What brought you here? I pause, considering how much of the truth I want to share. I could tell him everything, the past, the revenge, the man I destroyed. But that story isn't who I am anymore. So instead, I smile, looking out at the dark water. I needed a fresh start. He nods, as if he understands, and maybe he does. I think everyone needs one at some point, he says. Otherwise, we just end up trapped in the same story forever. I glance at him, something warm curling in my chest. Trapped in the same story. That's what I was, wasn't it? I had spent so long being Clara's unfinished ending, so long carrying the weight of a life that wasn't mine anymore. But I'm not trapped anymore. And for the first time, I think I can see a future, one that doesn't have Daniel's shadow cast over it. Later that night, I stand on my balcony, the city stretching out in front of me, lights flickering like stars in the distance. I think about Clara. I think about the love she had for Daniel, the way she held on to it, even in her last breath. I think about the girl who waited for him, who ached for him, who believed in him even as he left her to die alone. And I think about the woman I am now, Olivia. Not a ghost, not a memory trapped in the past, not someone waiting for a man to come back. I am here, I am whole, and I am free. Somewhere, Daniel will always be waiting. Maybe he'll look for me in crowded streets, in the faces of passing strangers. Maybe he'll wake up in the middle of the night, heart pounding, reaching for something that isn't there. Maybe he will finally understand what it feels like to love someone who will never come back. But that's his story now, not mine, because I have finally let him go. And this is my new beginning.